podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Interpro Show, coming to you in a very warm and very, very tropical Ireland this week, to be fair, while we're both in t-shirts, to look ahead to the upcoming Under-20 World Cup, or Junior World Cup, I believe we're supposed to call it, which takes place in Georgia. Conor McHugh, who you may recognise from our Munster Rugby show a few weeks back, joins me to talk all things under-20s with an Irish focus, of course. And Conor, I'll start by how we started the original chat, before we hit record. Are you looking forward to the Under-20 World Cup?
Yeah, 100%. Always a fun tournament. A lot of good attacking rugby. I've always just enjoyed sort of seeing the next big stars, kind of in their infancy, I guess, as far as their rugby careers. So yeah, very excited.
Yeah, it promises to be a great tournament. It always is. It is live on Premier Sports for those wondering, and I think Rugby Pass, if that's not geo-blocked. But we're going to start. We're going to just run through and go kind of from the start of the year chronologically and look at the Under-20 Six Nations first, or Six Nations first, I should say, Conor, because some people may forget Ireland started with a pretty disappointing loss to an incredibly strong French team, admittedly, and then reeled off wins over Italy, England, Wales, and Scotland. That England one, of course, away from home in a pretty seismic victory. With the benefit of hindsight, how do you think that Six Nations went for Ireland? Because it's a return to the top two, which a lot of people feel that's what you should be aiming for.
Yeah, I think it was a really good tournament. We had a lot of injuries, which may not have been obvious when looking at the team. And I think sometimes there's an element of kind of luck with the schedule. We had France away first game. I think France often start well. They're the most talented squad. They're the deepest squad, naturally enough. And I think just kind of coming in first, we were caught a little bit cold. It was probably a little bit much for them day one. But from there, they just built and built. Every game got better. I think we were missing two of our top prospects at centre, in Deegan and Walsh. But James O'Leary, who'd be I'd class in that category with the other two lads. Himself and Rob Kearney really developed a strong partnership, and I think game by game, Ireland just got a little bit cleaner with their work, a little more cohesive. Things really started piecing together, and a lot of talent sort of shone through, and it showed, reading off 4 wins on the row.
Yeah, no, it did. And I think even that first game, because it wasn't brilliant and Ireland were kind of slow and sluggish, certain players stood out, and that became the theme for the rest of the championship.
Yeah,
Josh Neal was excellent in that game. Christopher Barrett, who finished as top try scorer, I think he got one that night, maybe two that night. Just let me double check. He got two in that game.
got a brace. Yeah,
He finished with 5. Josh Neal got the other, and Ireland showed flashes. And then the Italy game, again, it wasn't brilliant. Italy are competitive at this level. Ireland only kind of inched over the line, but by the time they hit the England game, and a pretty decent England team as well, we had seen this type of attacking, fluid rugby led by Tom Wood at 10, it should be said as well. I thought that was the game he really grew into it. And Ireland just kind of grew into it. And as you said, you started to forget that this was a kind of backline that, say, at under 19 level wouldn't have been the first choice, for example, or even at under 19 level, Tom Wood was off playing under 20s, so it was a little bit different as well. And I think that was probably something that impressed myself, who was covering the whole tournament, was just how, in such a short period of time, Andrew Brown had got them into this incredibly well drilled team with ball in hand.
yeah. I think that really showed, and I think as well, early in the tournament there was maybe like some kind of mishandling or just general inaccuracy. Noah Byrne at fullback, I thought he got like a lot of high ball early in the tournament that he just wasn't fielding. And I guess sometimes that can happen. It's a bit of a frustrating one in rugby, where you'll hear after a game people talk about fielding and high balls, and oh, it just went one team's way, and that's sometimes frustrating to hear, but sometimes it's true. I think that improved for him as the tournament went on, and Ireland really started to play to their strengths, and I think that strength was having a lot of threat, starting in the back line from 9 with Barrett, who can snipe. But then when you get to Wood, we're talking about like a pretty elite facilitator. He's not afraid to challenge the line, and he's got a nice kind of variety in his attack kicking game. And then O'Leary is anchoring it. So what Ireland are able to do really well, I think, is keep teams very compressed because we have a physical pack, we have a really good sniping nine, and then we have a brute at 12 who can play make, and we've got a 10 inside him who can, it's got a really kind of nice varied game and a wide pass. And we just saw Ireland kind of connect better with that as it went on. And I think that Wood, O'Leary, Byrne axis just as a kind of tandem to pull with. They were the kind of three main options off of like set piece strike plays. It became really strong. It's something I'm looking forward to seeing more now in this tournament.
Yeah, and we will kind of focus in on the tournament at large now. We'll start with the squad because it is just a 30-player squad for this one, so it is slightly smaller. Starting off captained by Leinster's Sammy Beastie, Ben Blaney, Jamie Conway, Adam Cooper, Max Doyle. This is all the forwards. Joe Finn, Rian Handley, Charlie Keane, Alex Lautso is a return. The Munster flanker, Doohan Maguire, Blake McLean, Donncha Maguire, Luke McLaughlin, Dylan McNeese, Josh Neal, who we mentioned already, Diarmuid O'Connell, who had a very impressive run as well, and Paddy Woods, the IQ Ulster forward who only just came to Ireland in the last few months. I might actually start with him, Connor, because we haven't seen an awful lot of him. He's played a bit at the A games. Very physical, abrasive talent is the young. I think he's Australian,
Yeah.
Australian born. He's the type of players that we're going to see more of, like Sir Josh Neal as well. IFU making a push, get these guys up here at 18, 19, and if they're ready, they're going to play under 20s rugby.
Yeah, he's a really interesting one. He's a big guy, and apparently kind of, he landed in Ulster with the idea that he would be, assessed for academy and on trial, similar to Reinhard Gordon, who's in the Ulster Academy now from South Africa. But seemingly he made a huge impression, and he's kind of, I won't say got in early, but they were very comfortable bringing him in as an under 19 rather than waiting a year. So I'll be curious to see how much game time he gets. There's a pretty established core at second row there, but I really like the idea of Ireland just kind of maxing out on physicality, on size. We're missing a couple of front rowers from the Six Nations where we might have to compromise a bit there with that physicality. So someone like Woods could become, even more important again.
Yeah, and Lee Fitzpatrick certainly brought that abrasive edge. In particular, he was Ireland's starting hooker when he was fit. I know he kind of struggled with a couple of injuries as well. And just kind of, we might actually start at the back of the scrum and work forward because, Diarmuid O'Connell, Josh Neal, Alex Lautso, as of right now, you'd nearly say is Ireland's first choice back row. Joe Finn will definitely have a word on that, as will Ben Blaney. And it's something we're starting to see more of, is that there's a lot more size to these teams. Alex Lautso and Josh Neal are both under 19, and they're incredibly physical. Joe Finn, looked in certain games in that Six Nations looked like a pro playing under 20s rugby. The same can be said for Neil as well. And Diarmuid O'Connell, who took the road less travelled, he's from Carrigan-Shannon, spoke to a former coach his during the Six Nations, like a brilliant young man. They couldn't speak any higher about him. But as well, on the field, physical specimens, almost pro ready, which is not something we see every year from an Ireland under 20 group, but it is happening more and more. And we're starting to see it from under 19s as well, like, say, Neil and Lautso.
Yeah, those two are so exciting, and the fact that they're both under 19 is crazy. I'm speculating myself on if we'll see much of Josh Neal next year at 20s. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just kind of starting to make Leinster squads. He's, that effective. I think Lautsu might be every bit as effective, and I'm hoping we'll see that in the World Championship now. Good, clean run of injury, and I think he'll be a starter, and I think will really impress people. The two of them are kind of in that 6'3" range, so they're not like half locks. They're not mega tall, but they can bring physicality similar to that. Their work rate is unbelievable, both of them. Like they will lead tackle counts, they'll lead carries. They're going to be huge on sort of double efforts on ruck work. They're that kind of full court back rower. And I think they're both very impressive athletes. But the thing that's really exciting about them, I would say, is the stuff they excel at is like real winning rugby. And I mean that like scaling up to senior international level. Like these are guys you want in your team, always. So I think they have a chance to be like very physically dominant in games. Conditioning wise, they both seem to be like absolutely superb as well. So they'll create a lot of winning moments. But the other thing they will do is work so relentlessly hard in attack and defence that they'll really allow others to shine. Like I think of Dylan McNeice and Dermot O'Connell. I think Dermot O'Connell is a pretty well-rounded player as well, but with the back row that's probably going to be paired with him, he can really just focus on being a ball carrier, and he can really just focus on probably being a bit of a fetcher or a hitter in defence. I don't think he's going to have too complex a role. McNeice the same. Those two really free him up to just be a brute, and that is I say that as a compliment. That's what we want Dylan McNeice to do. He's a huge man. He likes to be physical, and I think they'll really allow that. Joe Finn can kind of provide that as well. He had really good stats around dominant tackles from the Six Nations. And the percentage of his tackles that were dominant. So he on the defensive side can be a very dominant player, which would just pair really nicely again with Lao Tzu and Neil. Yeah, I think for people who maybe haven't seen them too much or are kind of looking at this tournament and looking at this 20 side for the first time, that I think they'll be the real standouts, two real match winners.
Yeah, definitely. And just before we move on to the backs, Sammy Bishti is captain from prop. As I said, Lee Fitzpatrick, the hooker, isn't there, but I think Rian Handley and Dune Maguire did a great job in the Six Nations and deputising. Top Max Doyle impressed as well during the Six Nations with his limited minutes. To kind of focus on that front row, you kind of mentioned it's not necessarily the biggest, but at the excuse me, at the same time, Joey Conway, who's one of the new faces, is a big guy. The scrum was brilliant from Bishti and Doyle in particular. And that's probably important as well because we especially have seen it last year where Ireland maybe had a slightly bigger pack, but they had a lot of set piece issues. So this time that they have it so solidified, I think we've seen it especially against Scotland and against Wales in the fast Musgrave Park pitch. When you've got a set piece like that can lock out with anyone, you are going to, as you said, have winning rugby as part of your system. You're going to have these important tangibles, and Bishti and Doyle and Maguire and Handley are all important as that.
Yeah, 100%. The IRFU appointed Toomey a couple of years ago into that kind of scrum development role for pathways. And he's obviously involved in the coaching with the scrum for the 20s now. I know he's moved on from that role for the IRFU. I think they're getting someone else in. But I have to give him a lot of credit. I think you can really see the kind of renewed focus on scrum for Ireland. I think Doyle and Bishley as props did a really good job. They played a lot of minutes in the 20s. I think they have a lot of trust. And I actually don't think either of them individually is like this incredible standout scrummager. And I don't mean that as a negative, but what I really took from the Ireland scrum performance was how clear and kind of well drilled it was as a unit. So they were sinking on the hit and they were going forward at the same time with like really good rhythm, same kind of small steps. I think Rian Handley would probably be my tip to start for Ireland at hooker, get some of the injuries. He's a great scrummaging hooker. Anytime he came on, you could see that. So I think that unit will do really well. And I say unit like very specifically. I think they're a very good scrummaging group. And it's again not that any of them individually are like bad scrummagers. They're not, but what they're doing as a group, as a unit, is really good. It sort of feels like they've spent a lot of time drilling and getting that right, because what you've seen with that Ireland scrum, when it goes forward, they skittle people back. And they had some issues too, where they lost certain scrums and gave away penalties, but you'll rarely see as dominant a scrum at any level of rugby for Ireland as what they were able to produce when it worked. So it's really encouraging.
Yeah, we love our scrum chat on this channel, and it's never going to change. As long as I am one of the presenters, it's never going to change. But we will move on to the back line, where it starts with Christopher Barrett, ends with Tom Wood, and that nearly tells you all you need to know. But it's Christopher Barrett, Noah Byrne, Rob Kearney, not that one, Jack Deegan, Daniel Green, who was a returnee, Charlie Maloney, James O'Dwyer, James O'Leary, Charlie O'Shea, Johnny O'Sullivan, Daniel Ryan, Sean Walsh, and Tom Wood. And I think, Connor, in years gone by, you'd have looked at the Ireland under 20 side and you've said there would be a massive drop off between certain starters and certain backup guys. Even in very good years, this is a very well-rounded group of 13 backs, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of quality there. Like I think a Derry Maloney who, as far as I'm aware, isn't injured and hasn't made the squad after a good Six Nations. I think that's right. I don't think he's in the squad.
No, he's not in it. Whether he's injured or not, we don't get full
Yeah, yeah,
reports, but yeah.
which is understandable. But you know, Charlie Maloney comes back fit. He's a very high pedigree player. Dan Green, I'd be very interested to see. He was part of a very tough campaign last year. I think Tom Wood last year showed his flashes of ability, regardless. But it just goes to show what a certain kind of coaching setup and environment can do for players. Because the likes of him looks a completely different level now this year. But yeah, there's a lot of depth. I think might be the most talented group of centres we've ever had, just as far as the amount of them. I know a lot of people in Connacht are very excited and very keen to see Sean Walsh back in. He's the highest level prospect they've had since Henshaw, as far as homegrown players, for sure. Incredible athlete. Real kind of nice variance to his game. He can just be a really physical runner and break through contact. He's got great footwork, so he can bounce to the outside and inside. I'd be curious to see him at fullback as well. I think he's the level of athlete that could do that. Jack Deegan, again, phenomenal player. Was an absolute standout at Leinster Senior Cup for Ross Gray. Can play 12 or 13. He goal kicked for Ross Gray. I would expect he might come back into the starting team at 13 ahead of his teammate at Ross Gray, Rob Kearney. Rob Kearney did not put a foot wrong. He could not have done any better with the chances he got in the Six Nations. I think we're talking about, in Walsh and Deegan, two guys who are just very, very hard to ignore. So I'd imagine one of them comes back in, and I think James O'Leary will probably keep his place because of how settled I think that backline became, and I think he was maybe at this stage an underrated part of it because of the gravity he holds with his carrying threat and how good a kind of facilitator he is as well. I think people might be a bit surprised from that, but that was something he has been proactive with in his PBC days for 3 years. He was on the Senior Cup team, but particularly the last two. So, yeah, it's a tremendous group of backs.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the point on James O'Leary is very important because I watched him down. The only game I caught live, I was working for the Wales game, the Saturday night in Cork, and it was a pretty miserable evening. But he just has an unbelievable power and carry. And like, I know this man will get a lot of praise in the coming years with the more Prez players come up, but the work that Ger Burke has done with him at Prez in recent years has just been, and he's not the only one, and he won't be the last either, but he's just this incredibly rounded guy that I think 10 years ago, someone like James O'Leary coming through, and this is the same for other centres as well, probably ends up in the back row, probably ends up somewhere else. But the all-roundedness of him and others as well. And like I think it's important you touched on Daniel Green because he's in his second year. He didn't have a Six Nations. He was injured. But it can be hard sometimes for second year players because there's a little bit more tape on them. There's a little bit more of I've played this guy. But I think with how well Tom Wood played, for example, you're kind of like, well, it's a different team. And you'll have full confidence in Daniel Green when he gets back in there. But just on that spine, halfback spine, Christopher Barrett and Tom Wood, top try scorer and top point scorer, joint actually, in the Six Nations respectively. Two unbelievable talents in that are coming through at Munster and are good, both going to be in the academy next year. And with Barrett in particular, you look at him, you're like, well, he could easily play 3 or 4 lower level URC games next year, and Tom Wood will play URC next year.
Yeah, it's a really good halfback pairing. Really good. Chris Barrett is watching him in school. He started on the wing for CBC in fourth year, scored a try that I think a lot of people in Ireland probably saw with the crossfield kick that he volleys over. Really cool. And then I think his natural position had always been 9, but it was a case that they wanted him in the team then fourth year. So he played on the wing. And he goes back to 9. And, I'm not predicting this level for him, so I don't want anyone taking it out of context. But he plays like Antoine Dupont. Like, he plays like a guy who's grown up watching him and said, oh, that's how a scrum half should play. And it's pretty crazy to see, particularly in Ireland. That's pretty unusual for what we do. He's got that low kind of blocky athleticism to him. He's pretty physical for a guy his height. He's kind of got a sprinter, like he's really well coordinated and balanced when he runs, so he can just eat up ground. It's very exciting. And for me, when I was watching him in school, because he was paired with Charlie O'Shea, who's obviously in the squad as well at 10. He's very polished, great kicking out of hand. So often with Barrett, you didn't necessarily see much of that management side because they had such a good 10 there as well, and he was primarily kind of running 9. My big question was what does that kicking game look like? That's going to be so important at the next level. And then come the Six Nations, he box kicks off both feet. He does it accurately. Like, that is unbelievably encouraging for him, for Munster, for the Ireland 20s. So his game is very well rounded. He's got there's a quality, I think, with those kind of slashing 9s. Like, you see it obviously with a Dupont, with a TJ Perenara, with a slightly lower level player, but just to give a bit of context, like a George Horn, where they don't snipe all the time, but it feels like every time they do, there's a break or there's a half break, they get an offload away. So he's got that where he's got really good instincts. He doesn't get like choked up with the ball. He's not wasteful with opportunities. I think he's a really special player, honestly. And I think playing in hard ground in Georgia in a summer tournament, we'll just see more of that. And Tom Wood, then to have that outside, like, what a luxury. He is such a nice balanced player. A lot of confidence. Unbelievable left boot, really kind of relaxed, nice swing motion, very accurate. He's got a really good wide pass. He had was it Noah Burns try? I think it was against England.
I think so, yeah.
And he gets the ball at the line, and it's a very casual swipe ball across, and he does it so sort of smoothly that and kind of instinctively that it kills off like 2 England defenders, because they're in a position where they could intercept that if they can read that it's coming. But because he's so smooth and accurate with the ball, it just kind of, it's a white pass and it goes right across the face of them. And I think it was Rob Kearney is just on the outside then, and he gets the ball away to Noah Byrne, and they work it in the corner. It might have been Daniel Ryan who scored, but anyway, the point is, Wood can just kill teams off with his passing from 10. He can run the ball. Like I said, he's got that varied attacking kicking game. So he'll take options wherever they come. It's really encouraging. He can look a little light in defence, like a lot of 10s. He's going to have to put weight on. But it was the Italy game in particular where there was a point in that, because that was a close game, where there was a lot of kind of broken ball, a lot of sort of the ball stayed in play for quite a while, and Wood had a couple of big moments there defensively where he had to throw himself in, and he did it. And if he's
one of them led directly to a try where he makes the big hit, ball is spilt, and it ends up with Rob Kearney kicking him behind. And I can't remember if he scored or Daniel Ryan scored.
Jerry Maloney might have got it or something, but yeah, you're right. So he's shown a kind of doggedness there that's really encouraging. You'd never expect. There's very few 10s in pro rugby now who are like plus defenders. Like, it's a tough thing to ask of a 10. So he never needs to be that, but if he can just be pretty neutral and step up when needs be, that's all that'll require. So yeah, I think special starting halfbacks, I have to say.
Yeah, no, they really are. And just kind of focusing in the tournament. So Ireland played 3 fixtures, and this is important as well because Ireland played three fixtures in a very short period of time. It's a 5 day turnaround, so that does lead to more rotation. So you will probably see Charlie O'Shea get a start, James O'Dwyer get a start. Guys who were on the periphery last time out will all get game time, significant game time. So Ireland start with England on the Saturday, 27th of June. I don't know when this is going out, but it's on this Saturday at half 12 Irish time. And then next Thursday, half 12 Irish time as well, to take on Argentina. The following Tuesday, then it is the USA at 1 p.m. Irish time in their final pool game. And Connor, it does feel like we either get, England or New Zealand or France in every year of this because of how it unfolds, and I understand how it works. But to start with England may not be a bad thing. Am I right in saying that? Because it gets you up and going early.
Yeah, I like the run of fixtures we have because it's a very intense tournament with those turnarounds. There's always a lot of injuries. It's pretty tough on players and it's fairly unavoidable. I like, we're probably going to go first team in our first two games, England and Argentina. That's the big task, is win those games. And with the greatest respect to the US, we can rotate and should be fine there. So I like the fixtures the way they've played out. I really like our group, to be honest. We've obviously proven we can beat England. I don't think they've had the best of warm-up games either. So, that'll be a tight and close game. Argentina, it's kind of a tough read on what the under 20s Nations Championship. South Africa blew everyone away. They're the favourites for the whole thing. Argentina beat New Zealand, lost narrowly to Australia. But it's kind of hard from watching those to get a read on where the quality is. They're a very Argentinian looking side yet again. They've got these like really nice skillful halfbacks and back three players and a lot of mobility. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But I think that England game is the big one first up. Get a result there, and then there's a real opportunity to top the group. And it's this new format with four groups. It's just the winners into semi-finals. There's no best runner up or anything. So you just have to do the business and see it out.
Yeah, and I was going to touch on that anyways, because like Ireland kind of entered this as third seed based on last year's World Cup. That's why they're kind of down a small bit, but or maybe second seed. But if they do win out their group, you're looking at semi-finals, and then from there you're thinking you're going to get two more games anyways. You play out, you get your two knockout games regardless. But if Ireland do advance to the semi-finals, you're like, right, you can have a cut off it. But if they don't, fifth place has to be the aim because you're competing with, say, Italy or Scotland, perhaps, with maybe Wales, because you'd imagine South Africa go on and win that pool, and maybe Australia, who are decent, but Ireland should beat. And I think that's kind of a sign of where Irish rugby is at. As much as you can look at last year and get down about it all, and it was a poor year, and a lot of that was coaching as well as injuries. But this year, it's kind of top five. That's the aim, and top five is not a bad place to be aiming. When Ireland could feasibly lose to England by a point, which is always possible, and be better than some of the semi-finalists. Do you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It's fine margins. Like you say, you might lose a game narrowly. It means you're not in the semi-finals. But certainly, if we missed out on that sort of top place in the group, I don't see beyond France and South Africa, who is could be convincingly better than us. I think we can beat anyone there, and worst case finish fifth. And I think this group will. Honestly, I think they will do that at worst. I think they're going to win their group. They seem to be prepped well, had some good results in warm-up games. For some of the guys they've lost, I think getting Lau Tzu back is huge. I think getting Charlie Maloney back is really underrated, and that's even with the back three having performed so well. I just think he's a really, really quality player. He's just a little bit bigger than Derry Maloney, probably not as quick, but very good aerially. He's a finisher as well. He scores tries. He managed a hat-trick in last year's Six Nations against Scotland, which I don't think is any mean feat with how that kind of whole group went. So yeah, I think we're in a really good spot, and should find ourselves very competitive this time round.
Yeah, absolutely. No point asking for a prediction. You've kind of already given the trick away. But just to finish on it, this is going to be a tournament with a lower tackle height, the first international tournament. So we might just touch on that really quickly. So plain and simple, successful trials of the lower tackle height at the Sternum and Community Rugby will now be introduced to Elite Rugby for the first time at the 2026 World Cup. I know you watch an awful lot more AIL than me. I've seen it at junior and at AIL level. I'm a huge fan of this. Just really quickly, your thoughts on lowering the tackle height in a meaningful competition. I mean that with the greatest respect.
Yeah, it's I think it's important. I think that, the head injury side of things in rugby can't be ignored, and that can sometimes be frustrating where, you might see a red card and kind of go, God, this wouldn't have been a penalty 10 years ago. But I think it's a necessary adjustment that has to happen. You kind of see it in AIL games where you would see an incident and you are trained from just watching for years to kind of go, oh, okay, penalty, let's move on. And then a ref brandishes a red and you're kind of going, oh, wow, okay. So there's probably going to be a couple of games where that happens. Again, I think it's a necessary thing and it's just a necessary adjustment period. So, the technique and discipline are going to have to be paramount for all players, which is a good thing. I think that's actually, to bring it back to an Irish player specifically, watch out for that with Alec Loutzu. He's in that 6'2", 6'3" range, but he's extremely coordinated. Probably an underrated athletic feat that doesn't get discussed, but he can just kind of shoot off the line and then drop and hit so accurately into the ball or into the lower half. And that's going to be just really important. Teams are going to have to be careful with their discipline, but it may cause a few sort of wild cards or may lead to some funny results if there's an errant shot, because I think as well there's certainly at under 20 level with less experienced refs, because it's development for them too. You can sometimes see it could be someone slipping who gets a bit of a clothesline and they'll still go red because they're very kind of in the moment focused on implementing the laws as they were. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, it really should. I think it's promised to be a very good tournament. I think the fact that last year didn't go as well just kind of adds to the excitement. Unfortunately, I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be on the road for the first game, so I'm a little bit annoyed. So Rugby Pass better have an on-demand feature ready to go right after full time for that one. But Connor, thank you very much for hopping on for this special bonus edition of the Interpro Show. We'll be back with all things Nations Championship. I cannot contain my excitement for the Nations Championship, so we will have that and loads more to come. But for myself and Connor and all the team, thanks for watching, and we'll chat to you very, very soon.